Hey folks, with us today, Tilman, the founder of Codio Impact. Super happy to have you on.
Hi Niklas, nice to meet you.
Awesome. Let's start with the most important thing. What does your startup do and who is it for?
Yeah, Codio Impact is a B2B software for industrial companies, mainly construction, waste, and materials. And we help them to collect, centralize, and utilize ESG or sustainability data. Meaning, with our help, they're able to be faster in collecting the right information, and they're a lot more efficient in using good and auditable data in order to provide outputs like reports, industry benchmarking, or sustainable finance instruments.
I would love to get into how you found that idea, because before being a founder, you were on the dark side as a VC and like head of venture development in APX. So like, did you stumble upon like some research there and like got the idea, or like tell us the origin story and like how if any your last role played into that?
Definitely. I think in retrospect, it was probably the best entry into founding my own company. It wasn't planned though, I gotta admit. So I didn't strategically join APX just in order to quit again and then do my own thing. But if it's okay with you, I would maybe start a bit earlier.
Go ahead.
Because I actually grew up in a SME type family in Germany, you would say a Mittelstand based company. And since my youth, I've always been confronted with topics around waste and the circular economy. So imagine family dinner. You don't talk about the weather, but you talk about what type of plastics can be recycled. Sounds a bit odd, but this is kind of where I grew up, where I also got a lot of inspiration and passion from. And I mean, I studied economics and finance, very boring. I mean, the business bro type of studies, I guess. But quite quickly, I discovered my passion for startups, for the startup ecosystem. I liked the daring ideas. I liked the energy of the founders. And for me back then, VC was the easiest entry into getting closer, getting exposure to these types of people and teams that I admired. And I also quickly discovered that the investment side is actually not where I get my energy from, where I really found my passion, but rather in the interaction with the people that work on cool companies, great ideas, and maybe even more important, great problems to solve, which I very much aspire to as well. And that is also why at APX, I wasn't mainly focusing on investing, but as you already mentioned, helping companies within this term called venture development to avoid mistakes, to open networks, to be faster, to go to market. And during that time, I met my co-founder, Sonja Radovic, who also worked at APX actually. So if you look her up, there's a certain connection in how we met. And we then, after a good 3.5 years at APX, had 3 mission critical aspects that we felt like needed supporting. Number one, I already told you a couple of sentences about my past. It's how do we improve the circular economy? It's something that we both identify with and believe it's a topic for the future. So it needs certain help. Number 2 is how do we make sustainability measurable? When we kind of grew up in our studies and when we essentially started our careers, sustainability has been very communication driven. So it's been always about we are the greenest, we are the best. When we talk about sustainability, it's carbon emissions only, but there's so much more to it, right? And this is aspect number 1, circular economy. Aspect number 2 is measurability of something that was very intangible in the past. And number 3 is how do we cut down on regulatory complexity? So how do we make really tough and oftentimes confusing regulation manageable and tangible also for companies that might not have dedicated staff, experience, or expertise internally? And that is where we believe software is the right lever to really help them get off the ground and do something that is both economically but also sustainably viable.
And then in terms of who the customer is it more like mid-sized, meaning couple hundred employees, to like very big enterprise, or like who's the typical customer?
Yeah. So if you would nail me down on a single number, it would probably be around 1,000 employees. Our customers range from, I believe, the smallest one being 180 employees to the largest one crossing the 3,000 employee mark. So we would probably call it mid-market into small enterprise. We are not addressing the largest of the largest yet. We do, however, see a certain trend in the market that our leads and potential customers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, simply due to the fact that even those companies that probably covered this problem with manpower in the past now have to switch towards more technological assistance where we and certain competitors can come in.
And then how do you manage go to market in that? Because your product is, let's just say, quite technical, and it's not something that like the everyday person can fully grasp within like a couple of seconds. So tell us a bit about your go to market motion, how you basically work on the whole customer acquisition side.
Yeah. So I'll start on a comparison. Today, everyone understands financial accounting. It's necessary, it's required, and I would also argue it's solved. Of course, there are really cool startups saying we make accounting more fun, even maybe gamified, faster, more efficient. But in general, I would argue financial accounting is a topic that's been solved. We are addressing non-financial accounting. So similar to a financial accounting structure, all companies right now need to establish systems to cover all of these known accounting processes on the side of sustainability, which could be emissions data, it could be materials data, it could be waste data, but it could also be social data like occupational safety, training data, compliance seminars, etc. So it's a whole spectrum of data that either has never been collected before or collected in very fragmented places and needs centralization because otherwise you just burn time. And furthermore, in looking into this issue, we also discovered that sustainability is not comparable between industries. So if you think about tourism and problems of tourism, it's distinct from problems in textile, in manufacturing, in waste, or in chemicals. So you ask about go-to-market, and we at Codio Impact quite early on decided that we need an industry or vertical focus because due to the nature of the data, due to the nature of business models, we simply cannot be agnostic and say we can do it all. In my opinion, anyone who claims to do it, and there are some, are incredible in really understanding their customers and why they're doing what they're doing. So our go-to-market has heavily been industry influenced, and kind of where opened earlier, we very much focus on resource intense industries that we like to call the more extended circular economy. And what I mean by this, again, are construction, packaging, materials, and waste. And I mean, let's talk about growth. We believe there are some very adjacent industries like logistics or chemicals that we could move into in the upcoming years.
If you need to hire the right developers and ship fast, then React Squad is for you. A boutique agency that specializes in React and only works with fast growth startups. Visit reactsquad.io to learn more.
But then what kind of, let's just call it like playbook do you run? Is it like basically drive traffic to an ebook, you get an MQL due to that, someone rings them up, and then you have like say an SDR and an account manager? Like walk us a bit through like how maybe someone who's like even earlier than you, because like you're 3 years in, so still in an early stage, but not like super early. So just like, how does that look in a like industrial SaaS basically?
Yeah. So we do have an SDR and we do follow some typical structures with a setter and closer principle. So we enter a conversation, we make sure that a lead is qualified, then we go into a demo, and then ideally sometimes sooner, sometimes later, we move into contracting and then closing. And the real fun begins afterwards, right? When we talk about key account management, customer success. And I mean, side fact, we've never lost a customer. So we are very proud of winning, but also keeping customers. And in our topic, we just see growing importance. So there's actually a lot of value in upselling, given the fact that this topic is expanding, and why we put a lot of emphasis on not just early sales, but continuous sales, if you want to call it that. However, and I do sound a bit like like a broken record, and I get that, but we also use, again, our industry focus to our advantage in order to move and sell. What do I mean by this? We do like to attend physical trade fairs within our industry. So just to name a few, there's IFAD, which is a leading trade fair for the circular economy and waste. There's Bauma, probably one of the largest conventions in the world, which is focused on construction equipment. But the good thing is, our topic has quite a crowded market. There are quite a few players in the market. But if we go to one of these industry-specific trade fairs, we are the only solution there, right? So we go there and we can claim and we can show references. We can show our understanding of the industry. So we actually do like this type of old school get to know, gaining trust and getting into a conversation where we get a bunch of good leads from. A third channel connected to that are associations. So think about an association for digital businesses. There are also associations, and probably like dozens of them, in materials that do a bit of lobbying, that do a bit of shared service and help to their members. And we are one of these trusted solutions, again, in our verticals, where we know the associations, they take us serious because we understand the industry. And again, they can say, hey, a couple of members are really struggling. Maybe you can get in touch. So we would call them like warm leads, right? Because they come via connection. Maybe we don't know the company, but we tend to know the person that is making the connection. And then last but not least, you mentioned aspects on white papers, etc. And of course, we do utilize a bit of LinkedIn. But for us, it's very much let's call it more systematized word of mouth, where we want to be referred from trusted sources, whether it's a consultancy, an agency, or an association.
So then how do you do that operationally? Do you know exactly like, okay, here are like the 5 associations we need to ingrain ourselves in? Like how do you build the process to achieve that?
In a overly simplified way, yes. I think doing the research on associations, on agencies is not terribly difficult. Typically, associations always have a communication team because they want to do certain lobbying. They want to gain exposure for a topic, right? They are essentially representing the interests of their members and they want to get out there. So to be honest, talking to agency consultancies and associations is not terribly difficult. I think where challenges come in is when they are trying to assess, are you just blindly trying to open networks, or are you actually coming from the space that they are representing and they understand very well? And that is where you need to be not careful, but where you need to be prepared. And when you talk about operationalizing, sure, research is part of it. The outreach is part of it, but both not terribly difficult. But I think operationalizing also means you look into each association, you check whether they recently maybe created a DIN norm, or whether they recently published a white paper on a specific topic, whether they collaborated with another association that you're already in touch with. And I think that those are the moments where people listen up and actually take you for serious. Because they also look up your company history and see like, oh, you have been founded 2.5 years ago. Who are you, right? I mean, we're family businesses in the 8th generation. I mean, why would they trust you? And the reason they trust us is not because we are the coolest, hippest technological product, but because we understand where they come from and we offer help without looking down on them, right? There's a lot of prejudice on saying, hey, construction is a company that doesn't like, construction is an industry that doesn't like change. It's an industry that is extremely analog. And all of that might be right, but doesn't mean they are unwilling to change. And I think when you get on their level, then you really get into very good conversations, into trusted relationships that turn into commercial relationships rather quickly.
Then let's switch gears a bit and talk about company building. Can you tell us a bit about how much you raised to date and also like what the team looks like?
Yeah. So as of today, we raised a bit over €1 million. So it's not an incredibly high amount, but we're getting there. We have great investors on board. One of the investors, just for full disclosure, is APX, which used to be our employer, but we take it for a good signal. They trust us. They believe we're good people doing the right thing, and also able to build a company that will gain in value and produce a great business. We have other investors, for example, like Smart Infrastructure Ventures or Angel Invest, so quite like renowned, I would call them micro VCs or smaller consortiums. And we are not done growing yet, so we are probably going to raise another round later this year. In terms of team size, we have 7 FTEs, but then also a bunch of freelancers that help us, especially on the technical side. But when we say freelancers, we treat them like full-time employees. So we are not on and off 1 month or 1 week, but some of them have been working with us for close to a year, maybe even longer. And of course, sooner or later, we're also looking to grow the team size FTE-wise.
How did you decide which roles to hire in-house as quote-unquote proper FTE compared to freelancing out?
Yeah. So there are certain aspects where we just believe in-house is better. One of them for me is sales. My background also in the company is sales. So I want to build up a team that can not just sell well in terms of arguments, in terms of responses and velocity of how fast you move forward, but also I believe, at least, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe our topic is a topic where you also need to sell with knowledge. So you can't just sell on purely technical grounds, but you need to sell because you understand the problem of your counterparty. And I believe this is a lot easier in-house, where you also teach your sales team what these industries are all about, what their pain points are all about. And here, I just believe there's a bit more stability in building a knowledgeable team that might expand into key account management at some point, or that might move into a more hybrid role between product and sales. Product, it's also quite stable and in-house for us. And where we move more towards a freelancing front is on the tech side. But also there, Sonja, my co-founder, is Serbian. So we do have quite good connections to Serbia, where we believe they have a great talent pool, especially on the tech side. And this is another reason for freelancers, we believe also speed matters. And sometimes we just need to get something done. And this is a lot easier to do with trusted freelancers that can be utilized with a few more hours, maybe edit another one from an agency that we work with. And it takes us a week to move on, not 2 months of hiring. So that is especially where we have seen that outsourcing, or at least certain types of freelancing contracts, make a lot of sense for us.
And then is there a specific, because a lot of startups struggle to make use of, let's say, outside help. Is there something specific that you do to make sure that everything runs smoothly? Like any process you either initially did, or like how you work with those people to make sure that everything goes smoothly?
I'm not sure whether I have the golden answer here, right? But what I mentioned earlier, we mean it. When we hire and work with freelancers, we treat them like full-time employees. And there's no, this is a harsh word, but there's no discrimination between internal or external people. And this holds true for team meetings. This holds true for check-ins. They're part of our team, and they grow alongside with us. And maybe that's the one, at least experience, I don't know whether it's advice, but experience from us. If they feel valued, they also produce better value. And this is something that we want to continue doing. Of course, if we grow from, let's say, 12 or 14 people to 40 people, team culture will change again. And we are aware of that. But we are not looking to lose track of how close we work together, how well we know each other. And I think this holds true for both freelancers and full-time employees.
I think that makes a ton of sense. And then, as a founder, it's not always like sunshine and rainbows. So what's something that you as a founder are struggling with right now?
where do I start, right? I mean, sometimes it's the best decision of my life. Some other times I would just like to be employed and get some money for my pension fund. I mean, it's really, as you said, it's not all roses. So sometimes there's a lot of frustration, of course, building up by getting decision uncertainty. And what I mean by this is you are fighting in processes, whether it's on the sales side, on the product side, and it's just not moving as quickly as you'd like to see, but you cannot influence decision speed. And in my opinion, as a startup, if you come to a halt, your startup comes to a halt. And especially last year, we saw a lot of very promising processes. I mean, for me, I can mainly talk about the sales side, where we have had countless of great conversations, always getting great feedback, but we are not getting to a decision because more and more people get involved, because more and more alignment meetings need to happen internally. A lot of times you have certain all of a sudden management come in who start at ground zero and or square one, whatever you want to call it, and you then need to go to the very first meeting again, explaining the basics. And this is something that I cannot change directly, where we are trying to come up with materials with certain ways to make sure that we go as fast as we can. But I think one of the challenges we see simply is the fact that we cannot move as fast as we would like to. Sometimes it's our fault. Sometimes it's someone else's fault, let's call it. And another thing, of course, I wouldn't call it like a problem, but something that I believe every founder needs to learn is like, how do you communicate? How do you communicate internally to your employees? How do you signal certainty? How do you make sure everyone is aligned on a common mission and goal? Which, sure, you can learn about it in business school, but chances are you are really not good at it at the beginning. And you just need to make sure that you keep your line, that you find your groove, and that you also find the reliability in how you communicate to not only your employees, but also customers, right? And this is the external side. When we talk to mid-market Mittelstand companies, so SMEs of, let's say, 750 employees, they tend to be skeptical by nature about a company that has been founded 3 years ago. And also we have had a couple of disappointing rejections where people, quote, said, "You are the best solution, but it's too risky." And that sucks, right? You put a lot of time in. You put a lot of also convincing into materials, into conversations. And then after 3 or 4 months, people say, "We love you, but our management said on paper, we can't do this." And what do you do, right? You can't just age by 10 years. And those are the moments where, as a founder, you go up and then you go down and then you go back up. But it's okay. Long story short, so far, this has been a great decision. I don't regret it one bit. But of course, it's not always going up and up and up.
That feels very familiar.
Yeah.
And then because we're coming close on time, so as a final question, what's something that you would do differently if you would start the whole journey all over?
Oh, that's a great question. So I would probably try to get help on the sales side faster in a different way. So again, I'm mainly focusing on sales because that is where my experience with the journey of Codio Impact has been. I believe after a few months, we thought we needed to hire someone rather senior on the sales side to really take over certain aspects of sales. And I would say, not due to the person we hired, but more due to our maturity as a company, that kind of backfired. And in retrospect, I think I would hire a lot more junior and then grow alongside versus like just giving off responsibility that you need to keep anyway, at least in the beginning. So I think I would trust ourselves to also hire more junior, but then hire highly ambitious people that help you grow and also help me learn from their skills and their experiences. And then maybe another side, I know this is a recurring theme on startups, is also the question of financing, where we, of course, have learned a lot on how do you sell to a customer and how do you sell to an investor, what type of round are you structuring? Maybe the round size in retrospect was too small or too large, and then you change again. Or you're just done and then you think about a way you could have done it better, or you had a different partner and it could have went a different way. So I think the two main aspects for me are probably about hiring and what type of seniority we could and would have hired in certain positions, and the way that we would have approached funding rounds in terms of size, structure, and maybe also what's the right word here? Outlook. So where do we go from here? The tendency is so far we have probably undersold ourselves, which sounds like a weird statement now, but we weren't 100% sure what the next steps are, and I think we could have done even better, but that's easy to say, right? You learn, and now a new funding round is about to happen, and we learn from the past, and now it's all great, right? So there are different ways that you learn, but you learn something every day, and that's fine.
Then before we hang up here, where can people find you and the company online?
Yeah, so our website is www.CodioImpact.com, Codio, Codio, Impact, I think is easy enough. And you can always reach out to us via our website. You can connect to me on LinkedIn, Tilman Kemper, or you can just write me an email at tilman@CodioImpact.com.
And as always, we will make sure to link everything up below. Tilman, thanks a ton for coming on today.
Perfect, Niklas. Thank you so much. That was fun.
If you like this episode, then you'll love the SaaS Operator, a weekly newsletter brought to you by EarlyNode, with actionable insights from SaaS experts in the industry delivered right to your inbox every Tuesday for free. Visit earlynode.com to subscribe.